I really do feel like drinking is music, and that one of the best parts of becoming an adult is learning how to drink. And that there's actually an art to drinking, to being around people, to moderating your drinking based on certain situations, around certain groups of people, learning to be safe but have a good time and not get to that point where you fucking blast the volume knob like you did when you were 18, 19, 20 years old, to let it enhance you, to let it run through you but not overflow you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AUX. We have an exciting show for you today. Let's jump right into it. So the LAPD locked up the wrong woman for almost 2 weeks. And this comes from Eyewitness News 7. There is a woman who filed a lawsuit claiming that the LAPD put her in jail for 13 days before realizing that they had the wrong person. She had the same name as a wanted woman. Bethany K. Farber's ordeal began. Bethany K. Farber's ordeal began last April when she was on her way to Mexico to visit family. She said Transportation Security Administration officials told her that there was a warrant out for her arrest in Texas. I asked them repeatedly to double check, and they completely blew me off, Farber said. They said, "Nope, Bethany Farber, we have you." Sorry, Bethany. There can only be one Bethany Farber. So, based on the fact that your first name says Bethany and the last name says Farber, that is enough for us to lock you up. And so please get in the back of this car. According to her legal team, TSA turned Farber over to the LAX police, who then turned her over to LAPD and took her to 77th Street Station for booking. Now, that's what's interesting at the time, is that when Miss Farber was booked, the police do nothing to confirm whether or not this Bethany Farber is that Bethany Farber. Farber's attorney, Rodney Diggs, said. This Bethany Farber, from what we understand, has an extensive criminal history. Her fingerprints are in the database, and Farber's family hired lawyers in Texas and SoCal to work on her release, and she was held in Linwood County Jail for 2 weeks without bail. Her family sent phone records, they sent photos to law enforcement, and the district attorney handling the case in Texas received a response from the prosecutor. And the prosecutor finally said, "Oh God, oh my God, we are so sorry. We will expedite this. We will get her out." Sorry, Bethany. Sorry, I know you have been locked up for 2 weeks in jail, and we weren't able to do the basic double checking work that a fifth grader would be able to do with matching up a name to a face. But my bad. My bad, Bethany. On April 28th, 2021, Farber was released from jail. She said the ordeal caused her ailing grandmother to suffer a stroke that led to her death. So imagine her grandmother, the last thing that her grandmother thought before she died is that her granddaughter is a wanted criminal. But thank God the LAPD put out a statement saying, "My bad. Sorry, Grandma. Sorry, Bethany. We sincerely apologize for putting you in a jail cell for 13 days without checking your name, without double checking to see that your face indeed matched the records and bullshit like that." And this story, I imagine most people would see this story, and this is what I initially thought. You see this story, and you might think that this is just like it's a procedural thing, like something happened, something got mixed up, and it's akin to if it wasn't something like the police where you were locking people up and it was a serious thing where you lock someone up and they're away from their family, it puts a mark on their record. Forget all that for a second. This is just a procedural thing. Like if you scheduled a meeting with someone in your company by accident because someone else also had the same name. Maybe you might think something like that. Well, you know, like sure she got locked up for 13 days and that sucks, but this isn't something that happens regularly. This isn't it's just a small mix up. And it sucks that she had to spend that time, but here's the thing. How underqualified are the police? And I'm asking this from a general standpoint because I learned how to double check things in 4th grade, probably before that. The art of double checking when I turned in a homework assignment at 8 years old and my teacher said, "Hey, you see this name right here? Does it actually match up to the person that you're talking about?" And I would search on the computer because I didn't have a phone at that point, and I would look up the fact, and my teacher said, "Yeah, you know, go look it up and come back and double check it. This is the first draft, and then you'll get everything right when we eventually hand it in." And so I go back, I double check, I look over the facts, pull up the computer, and my 8-year-old self comes back to school the next week, and I go, "Yeah, I think it's double checked. This checks out, you know. This paper on Christopher Columbus and all these facts, it matches up to Christopher Columbus." And I hand in that paper and I get a B plus and everyone's happy. And I've learned the art of how to double check something like a name to a face. This is double checking. The stakes are much higher because if you aren't able to confirm someone's identity, they sleep on a sperm-infested cot for 14 days by accident. But how underqualified are the police where they were not able to perform a simple procedure like this, and they're supposed to be the same people that are solving homicides? Like, these are the same people that are solving homicides in Los Angeles, which, from what I understand, there are a lot of these days. And how can you be expected to follow the breadcrumbs of a double murder when you can't even follow the breadcrumbs of looking for someone that has the same last name? The last name is Farber. I'll give them the first name. I'll give them the fact that Bethany is not a super common name, but Farber? You don't run a double check on Farber just to see, hey, did we accidentally lock up the wrong Farber? I knew like 6 Farbers just in my town. And yeah, it was Jewish, so there was a higher percentage, and statistically I'm more likely to run into a Farber, but still. How do you not, like let's walk through what happened, what I imagine happened. So let's go back to the article for a second. So Miss Farber is booked. The police do nothing to confirm whether Farber is that Bethany Farber. So there's a warrant out for Bethany Farber's arrest. Bethany Farber shows up at LAX airport and they look at her ID and they go, Bethany Farber. Okay, this matches the same name as a wanted criminal. Should we check the photo against the other person that's wanted? Should we look up anything basic about fingerprints or, just see if she has a YouTube channel? Does it match the face of Bethany? Check her Facebook page. Like these are things that I've done before getting into an Uber. Like you see the license plate number, and I take a quick glance at the guy's face and I go, you know what? This looks like the guy. This looks like the license plate number. If he kills me, at least it was the right guy. So I'm going to hop right in the back seat, Ahim. This is the equivalent. This is basically what it's the equivalent of. This is like the police. This is like me. If I knew that there was an Uber I just called that's about to show up in 5 minutes, And the only information that I have is that it's a Toyota Camry. And I hop in the first Toyota Camry I see. And I go, okay. And the guy's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, take me. I think it's 505. Take me to the pizza place on the corner of Court Street. And he's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah. Do you not drive Uber? And he says, no. But because I've seen him in a Toyota Camry, I keep insisting, dude, you must be the Uber driver. You're in a Toyota Camry. I see you right here. Toyota Camry's coming to pick me up. And he goes, let me see that. And I pass my phone to the guy and he says, you're looking for a black Toyota Camry, dude. I'm in a red one. And my name's Joseph, not Ahim. And this license plate doesn't even match mine. And I look him in the face and I say, you think you fucking have me, bro? You think you're gonna fucking pull one over on me, bro? And I call the police and they lock this guy up for 2 weeks. That's exactly the same situation as what just happened here. This is like the police, like when police officers call an Uber, did they just hop in the first car that they see? Do they just lock up the first person with the same name? Do they not check the photo? Is there not a basic procedure where you look at the photo, you match it up to like just looking at one shred of evidence of identification, birth date, middle initial? Is that how they found out? They were looking for a wanted criminal whose name was Bethany K. Farber, and they finally looked at her license and it said Bethany M. Farber, and they go, oh shit, are you Bethany M. Farber? Oh fuck, my bad. Yeah, we're looking for Bethany K. By the way, your grandma's dead, so you might want to check in on that. I don't know what's happening there, but here's your clothes. Also, I mean, I've people have said this before, and this you see this a lot with police solving crimes and locking people up for crimes that they haven't committed, especially with minorities, black people, black men in particular. We don't have a crime solving system. We have a crime assignment system. So and again, I'm not an expert on police activity. I'm not an expert on the process at all. I'm simply just saying things that I observe. And based on what I know about people being locked up for the wrong crime, or they didn't even commit a crime at all, but they're the police and the prosecution combined to fight to get this person locked up for that crime, despite what the evidence may say. They ignore shit. They keep pushing. They don't want to be wrong. And it seems like they're more interested in assigning the crime to someone than they are solving it. As long as we can pin Joe for murder, the murder's been solved. And then it's like, wait, what if Joe's not a murderer? It's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. We've pinned it on him, you know? His name's Joe. We got him. It's like they don't need the Bethany Farber. They need a Bethany Farber. We don't need the murderer. We just need a guy who is walking on the same sidewalk. We need a guy that fits. We need a guy we can sell. I feel like a lot of times it's like a sales thing that goes into locking people up for crimes. It's like, all right, like we have this dude. We have some evidence that points to the fact that he committed the crime, but can we sell this? Can we sell this to the judge? Can we sell this to the jury? How can we wrap this guy up in a bow and pass him off and fucking sell this dude like it's Black Friday? Because his black ass is going to jail. How funny would it be if the real Bethany Farber convinced the police that she wasn't the real Bethany Farber, so they had it right the first time? And she's like, no, you have the wrong one. I'm Bethany M. Farber. Bethany M. Farber, officer. You're looking for Bethany K. and they let go this serial murderer, Bethany M. Farber, and they bring in Bethany K. Farber. She's a suburban housewife in New Jersey. They're like, yeah, we got you. Show up at our house with the red and blues. Her husband's like, dear, what's going on? What? They're saying you murdered? Police are like, yeah, I'm sorry to tell you, but your wife's a cold-blooded murderer. We thought we had her. We thought we had the person who did it, but it turns out she was just someone with the same name, Bethany K. Farber, Bethany M. Farber. It's your wife. I'm sorry to let you know this, sir. We're gonna take her away now. And the husband's like, how do you know? How do you know it's my wife? What? She has an alibi. You said it was last Thursday night. We were playing poker. I play poker with my wife. Most guys, they don't like playing poker with their wife. And I bring her along because she's a good time. And I'm proud of that. She makes me a better player and a better husband. And the officer's like, that sounds awful, but doesn't change the fact that your wife's name is the same name that the wrong Bethany gave us. She told us the same name on the license. And look, we're going with it. We can sell your wife. This Bethany is an easier sell to the jury than the last Bethany. And we've assigned this crime to her. Her poker days are over. At least on the outside. And then they take her away for 25 years. That is that. The LAPD locked up the wrong woman for almost 2 fucking weeks. There's something else going on with Asians. Asians in school. And this has been brewing for a while. So Asians are fed up with being discriminated against in the high school system, the university system, and this comes from Newsweek by Helen Raleigh. And the San Francisco School Board, the title of the article is the San Francisco School Board recall shows a new political awakening of Asian Americans. Helen writes, an overwhelming majority of voters in San Francisco just chose to oust 3 leftist school board members via recall. Apparently, in the most progressive city in America, the board members' ideologically driven policies and actions have gone too far this time. They've just gone too far. The 3 school board members who lost their seats are Board President Gabriela Lopez, Commissioners Faga Maliga, and Allison Collins. The city's Democratic Mayor, London Breed, who favored the recall campaign, will select 3 people to fill the newly vacant seats. The recall campaign was the grassroots effort led by Asian American parents who were frustrated over the school district's extended COVID-induced school closures. Kids in San Francisco's public schools didn't return full-time to in-person class until last August, long after schools in many parts of the country had already reopened. Besides prolonged school closures, parents were also upset that the city's progressive school board had demonstrated more interest in performative social justice activities than in providing quality education for all. It's become a performance. And the curtains are closing. The school board has beclowned itself by trying to cover up a mural depicting slavery and Native Americans, as well as renaming 44 schools named after such titans as in American history as Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. If you can't name a school after Abraham Lincoln, if you can't have a school named after you for freeing the slaves, for literally ending one of the most dark and tragic and violent acts ever committed against a group of people, American slavery against black people, against Africans brought over to America, if you can't have a school named after you for ending that, what can you have a school named after you for? if you free the slaves, like, also, what will they allow Abe Lincoln to have a shop named after him for? Like, will he be allowed to have a bakery named after him, like Abe Lincoln Bakery? There's some limit to how many people, it's like, or what's going on inside the school. We can't name the building after Abe Lincoln where people's minds are being molded, because Abe Lincoln's racism may seep into their brains. So if it leaks into the bread, it's fine. We'll serve racist bread to people, but we're not going to teach the racist policies of Abraham Lincoln at Abraham Lincoln High School. This guy had the audacity to free the slaves. What a piece of shit. What should we name the school now? Colin Kaepernick High. I don't know. I mean, I feel like naming shit in general has just... People are much more invested in these surface level things that don't matter. I love how the name of the school is one of the main things that are going on in San Francisco and all over. The statues, names, whatever. Name shit whatever you want, but that should be number 1,000 on the list of what a school is doing. What are we teaching them in classrooms? How are we preparing kids to enter a world where most of the jobs that people have prepared for in the past are quickly being automated away? What about the fact that we've just had masks on their face for 2 years and we may need to reteach kids how to socialize? How about teaching kids how to write and read and be human beings and make a living out of something that they find purposeful, and how to treat another human being? What is it? I'm so confused with the name of the school and why that's so important. Like, name it Garfield High. Who the fuck cares? As long as you are doing a good job teaching people. I'm talking to you on a podcast called The AUX, and I named it that because originally this platform was for interviewing music artists, and so AUX, the AUX cable, you plug it in to listen to music. But that doesn't mean anything for what I talk about. I like talking about music, and I still interview music artists and have conversations with them on the Auxoro podcast, as well as people from many different backgrounds. But the name is not important. This could be called the Buttfuck Podcast, and I'd still hope that you get value out of it. And maybe it would even help with people checking it out, because they're like, like buttfuck. I don't want to listen to that, but I have to, though, now. People getting buttfucked? Is it audio only buttfucking? What is going on? And it's the Buttfuck Podcast is just me talking about Abe Lincoln freeing the slaves, and it has nothing to do with that. But yeah, 44 schools after such titans as Abraham Lincoln and George Washington are being renamed. George Washington, though, I kind of get, because his teeth were so fucked up. You can't be naming a school after people with wooden teeth. You can't be trying to teach hygiene in a school. Imagine going to George Washington High School and the teacher says, "Hey, when's the last time you brushed your teeth?" And you say, "The name of our school is based after a guy who had tree trunks in his mouth." Shut the hell up, Mrs. Farber. And then you come to school a week later and you're like, "Yo, where did Mrs. Farber go?" And another kid's like, "Oh, my mom told me she's a serial killer." And you're just like, "Oh, whatever." And then the name of your school gets changed and nothing happens. You're just like, all right, who gives a shit? Commissioner Collins called Merit. This is Allison Collins, one of the people taken off the school board. She called Merit a racist construct. So now if you earn, the concept of earning things is racist. And we'll come back to that. Collins alienated Asian Americans further after some of her old tweets disparaging Asian Americans resurfaced. And one of those tweets Collins accused Asian Americans of using white supremacist thinking to assimilate and get ahead. So Asians are now joining myself. Throw them all in the bucket. Throw them all in. It doesn't matter. You could be black, you could be Asian, you could be white, you could be brown, Native American, whatever. If you're earning anything, if you've earned a goddamn dollar in the past month, you're a white supremacist. Because you're trying to get ahead by you accepting payment and reward and recognition for the things that you've done to make your small corner of the world a better place. I know what you're doing. You're listening to this podcast right now, thinking maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I'll waste 30 minutes of a drive listening to this guy's voice who doesn't know what he's talking about, but for some reason I can't stop listening. Maybe I'll get something out of this podcast, but I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You're trying to get ahead, you fucking white supremacist. Jesus. Get yourself together and stop trying to earn shit. Stop trying. That's the only way. If you stop trying, you can disrobe yourself of the white supremacist robe you've been wearing by trying to be successful. Also, before that, let me read the tweets. So Allison Collins said, "My best friend from school says she feels alone in the Chinese community. She feels ostracized when she speaks up against anti-black hate. Where are the vocal Asians speaking up against Trump? Don't Asian Americans know they are on his hit list as well?" Maybe Asian Americans are worried about stopping attacks against their own people. Wasn't that Stop Asian Hate? That was the whole ordeal, you know. Different groups deal with different things. And I'm sure there are Asians out there that speak up against anti-black hate, and they may not be tweeting about it and creating a hashtag every 5 seconds because they're fucking studying. They're trying to get into school. They're trying to get into university. Maybe Asian culture just doesn't give a fuck about, you know, as much about this kind of cancel culture, woke Twitter bullshit. You know, maybe Asian culture is more tuned in to let people waste their time on Twitter. I'm going to become I'm going to fucking get ahead and do well in school, and I'm going to bring home a B+, and my mom's going to tell me that I'm not of any worth to her unless I bring home 4 more A+ in a row. Which I had Asian friends like that who definitely had way more pressure on them to become lawyers, doctors, whatever. I know it's such a cliche. But 2 of my best friends growing up were from Korea, Jimin and Andrew, and they 100% got more pressure from their parents. And I'm not saying all Asian parents pressure you to do well in school, but it seems like there's a lot of truth to the stereotype where when I would go over their houses, there was definitely more of a, like, get your shit together, like, stop fucking around, A or bust, A+ or die, you know, get a 4.0, so you're getting ready for medical school. And meanwhile, we're in 3rd grade and I'm just fucking eating a peanut butter sandwich as a chubby fat kid on the couch. But the rest of this tweet is ridiculous. So Allison Collins then goes on to say, do they think they won't be deported? Do they think they won't be profiled, beaten? Being a house N-word is still being a house N-word. You're still considered the help. So now Allison Collins is comparing Asians to house slaves because Asians are somehow just going with the white supremacy by succeeding and getting really high paying jobs and doing well and wanting to pass down that success generationally. Now that makes you a house slave, apparently. So I'm actually very confused by this. Like I can't say I'm angry because this isn't really about me. I'm not part of the Asian community, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, There are poor Asians that are outscoring rich white kids on tests. How is that white supremacy? That's literally the opposite of privilege. There are a lot of Asians that they came over, their parents came over, and again, I feel like this is a culture thing. This isn't a privilege thing. This isn't a supremacy thing. There's something that's a part of Asian culture where the expectations are higher. The drive, the discipline seems to be instilled by the parents to a greater degree academically. And that seems to carry over whether you're coming from a rich Asian family or middle class or poor Asian family. It seems to be a through line to a lot of Asian cultures that you are expected to do well. I don't give a fuck if you don't have a lot of money, what the situation is, but it seems like that kind of it's like that bootstrapping mentality, but academically, like, shit's not going to be easy, but at the very least, we expect you to do well in school. And no matter what is happening in your life, you are bringing home the fucking bread in the form of A's. And it seems like Asians, for whatever reason, that is a bigger part of their culture academically. Asians do well in school, and poor Asians are outscoring rich white kids on tests. So I don't get how that's privilege. That's the opposite of privilege. That's like having your arms tied behind your back in a fight and winning the fight anyway. Like having your arms tied behind you metaphorically, academically, and still beating the other kids in school. Whites, blacks, Latinos, Indians, whoever. Asians test high. And here's what I think it is. I think, like, you can't say it's white supremacy when Asians do well if you see Asians and white people as two separate things. And so Asians are outscoring everyone. Like I said, white, black, Latino, whoever. And so in order for the left to sell this as, and the extreme far left, this is not a common view held by the left. These people are fucking retarded that are getting kicked off the school board. In order for you to make merit white supremacy, you have to hook in the Asians with whites. So you have to take away their Asian identity or make them these house slaves somehow, where you're like, oh, Asians are just cooperating with white people because they want to get ahead. Which, by the way, have you ever been to Chinatown? Have you ever been in an Asian community? Like, it is, a lot of people don't even bother to speak the language. They are so in their own world. Like, they're just working, getting ahead. Go to Koreatown, go to Chinatown. Like, they're not mean or like disregarding to white people in any way, but like in a lot of ways they don't give a fuck about what's going on around them. That's why it feels a different world when you walk into somewhere like a Chinatown. It's like, this is totally different. We've assimilated into New York City, but we still do our own shit. They're not trying to butter white people up in any way. That, if anything, I've seen the opposite. They're just like, they kind of see white people as just like another thing that's next to them, and they do business with white people, and they like that they can interact with them and make money. Just like if you do business with any group of people, you want to be able to understand them and speak with them, have interactions. But there's not a lot of evidence to support this. There's not any evidence to support this claim. You're just throwing shit out there and saying Asians are house slaves. But like, look, like, open your fucking eyes. And that is not meant to be a slight at all. But I'm literally like, open your eyes, Allison Collins, and look around at Asian communities and tell me if you see that they give a fuck about anything that you're saying they give a fuck about. Also, they should, it doesn't matter who is kicking your ass in testing. Whether you're Asian, black, white, Latino, whoever, if you are getting ahead, you should get the spot. If you kick anyone's ass in testing, if you're in school and you're getting higher grades on tests, you should get the spot. And if I kick your ass, I should get the spot. And vice versa. This whole thing doesn't make sense. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it should be like that I even have to say this, but merit is the great equalizer of opportunity. When you earn something, people are forced to acknowledge you. They're forced to accept you. They're forced to see you because you do something really well. And if you're crushing it in school, you're bringing home the bacon in tests, SATs, college acceptance, going on to secondary schools, things like that, making a lot of money, figuring out ways to do it, and coming from families that are not well off to begin with. If you figure that out, no matter who the fuck you are, you earned it. It should not be stripped away from you. You should not get rid of testing. Here's what I don't get. From what I understand, this was done because, and when I say this, getting rid of merit in the curriculum, altering the tests and the curriculum, this is because there's a high percentage of Asians that are taking spots in schools, in high schools and secondary schools, not enough black kids in schools. There's an imbalance somehow that they see with race. So if you design a test and Asians of all backgrounds, poor, white, poor, middle class, rich, they're dominating. Why not look at what these students are doing to dominate the test, or what their parents are saying to them, what the culture says about them, good and bad, because academics aren't everything. When you have pressure on you academically, there are downsides to that for sure. When you have that intense pressure all the time. But look at Asian communities and see what are they doing to score this high? What are they doing to get to this place? And instead of stripping away what they've earned, apply that to other students who need it. And teach them how to have the skills that, if we're going to keep tests this way, that Asians seem to build in a better way, a more efficient way. And if you're going to overhaul the system, don't do it to make it easier for a group of people to get in. That makes no sense, having a quality of outcome. But overhaul the tests in general. Just make it, think about making it a better quality test. Don't worry about, okay, is this test going to let in are 50% of black people, 50% of white people, 30% Asians, 20% Latinos. Don't worry about the percentages of how people are going to test. That's fucking insane. And that's also the most racist thing ever, to say that because of the color of your skin, you're going to test in a certain way. Like you're going to get a certain score on a test because of where you came from. Does not make sense to me. It's more racist to stop Asians from getting into school because they're doing well. You're literally kicking them out because they're Asian, rather than looking at the testing system and looking at the students and saying, okay, what needs to change here? How can we get everyone on board with what Asians seem to be doing so well? And also, how can we make the test better? Because memorizing testing this way isn't everything. Maybe apply more creativity to it. Maybe change the way that that education is basically you just regurgitating facts back in the form of a Scantron. A, B, C, D, multiple choice. That doesn't prepare you for fucking anything except memorizing. I don't know 98% of the shit that I memorized in school because it wasn't tied to anything. So if anything, overhaul the system. Don't be racist and stop people from getting in because they're Asian or any race. Doesn't make sense. And stop these quotas. I'm all for trying to include everyone, but these quotas, they don't make sense. Because it should be, if you're testing to get into a great high school, the testing should be blind. You should not have a name. if it were me, I wouldn't even have race, ethnicity on the page. I would just have what the person's done, their answers for the test, their essay, whatever. Maybe it has some personal identifying information in the essay, but like no race, no name. You just do a blind entrance, who they are, how they tested, and you let them in, and whatever percentage it is that year, it is that year. Maybe it's 80% Asian, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 40% black, maybe it's 80%. Like, who gives a fuck? Just let in the people who are building, or let in the people who are earning what you've put in front of them. It's like you have this test that Asians have figured out, and then you're saying, well, you figured it out too well, so we're gonna punish you for excelling. And that kills people's spirits. And no surprise these board members got recalled, because it's fucking stupid. Imagine if the NBA was like, there's too many black people, and we need to start letting more whites, more Asians in. We need to make the NBA, instead of 85% black or whatever it is, we're going to make it 50%, 50%, whatever. We're going to make it 30% white, 30% Asian, and only 40% black. No one would watch the fucking NBA, because owners don't care about what skin color you have when they're trying to win a game. And it just so happens that black people are better at basketball on average. And that's why the NBA is predominantly black, because the owners are looking for the best fucking players. If the NBA was like, we need to stop the number of black people getting into the NBA, getting drafted, that would be fucking absurd, because they're the best players. They deserve it. If you have the skills and you're winning and you've performed well in college and high school, you deserve that spot. And it just so happens that a lot of people in the NBA are black. And school is the Asian NBA. That's basically what I'm saying, is that Asians ball the fuck out on tests. And you're basically saying, like, because you're balling out so hard on tests, because you're 360 windmilling SAT scores, we're actually going to stop you from getting into school. Like, stop dunking so hard on these tests, Asians. Like, chill the fuck out. Like, that makes zero sense. If whoever is doing well on the tests, close your eyes, fucking just care about how they performed and let people in. It does not make sense to me. But I'm also not the smartest person, so maybe I am racist for wanting to try. I guess but by recording this podcast, I'm a white supremacist, because I'm trying to get ahead in the podcasting world. So what would life be like if you drank every day? That's a question that's been on my mind. What would life be like if you drank every day? And I actually watched a movie on a plane recently called Another Round. And Another Round is about 4 high school teachers who consume alcohol on a daily basis to see how it affects their social and professional lives. And they keep a steady buzz throughout the day. And it's with Mads Mikkelsen. He's the star of it. He's the lead in Hannibal, which is a great TV series. Go check it out. But basically, this movie explores the topic of, if you had alcohol in your system to a certain extent every single day, whether, basically a steady buzz, would that make you perform better? Would that make you a better teacher in this case? Would that make you a better podcaster? Would that make you a better lawyer, accountant, whatever? And there's this one scene in there's this one scene in the movie where they're all getting fucked up, and this is a phase in the experiment where they're drinking hard. So for most of the movie, they've been teaching, they've been going into the school, they've been taking beers, shots throughout the day. They have a keychain breathalyzer on them, so they're staying between like 0.04, 0.08, trying to see what makes them genuinely a better teacher. And they're in this phase, they get to this phase in the movie where they say, okay, we have to push it to the limit. We have to black out and go beyond that. We have to just we have to go into the stratosphere. I said blacking out and almost just burped and threw up on the spot. It's bringing back past memories. But they want to shoot into the stratosphere, essentially, of alcohol consumption. And they start out drinking, they're drinking hard liquor in scotch glasses. And they make this concoction that is so fucking alcoholic. Literally, it's like a bloodbath of alcohol. 4 different types of liquor. They're chugging it. And they're blasting off. And at the same time, they're cranking music. They're cranking up music. And they keep putting it louder and louder and louder. And eventually they get to the point where they're fucking belligerently blackout drunk. And they've reached the top and beyond. And it made me think about something watching the scene. It made me... I don't think the correlation between drinking and music is an accident. And I've had experiences on all ends of the spectrum, from having 1 beer to having 15 more throughout an entire day drinking, being just absolutely fucking blacked out to kind of buzzed. And what this scene made me think about is drinking is like music. Drinking is music in a way. A little bit of music, when you turn up the volume slightly, is ambiance. It's in the background. You can study to music. You can edit a podcast with music in the background if you're doing the video. You do a lot. You walk with music, work out with music. You do a lot of things with music. When you turn it up a little bit, it's an ambiance. Same thing with having a buzz. You can function. You can do a lot of things. I've worked out. I'm not suggesting it, but I've worked out with a small buzz. 1, 2 drinks. It's an ambiance. When you turn up the music a little bit more, when it's at that steady level of, okay, this is coloring my consciousness to a point where it's no longer in the background, it gets you moving. Music gets you moving. Having 4, 5, 6 drinks in your system gets you moving, and in many situations enhances the experience for me. Some people don't like the feeling. I think being drunk up to a point enhances the experience. That's the goal. I used to drink to fucking black out in college, and now I drink when I do to enhance. I think about, am I having a good time right now? Okay, let's keep it here. Let's keep the enhancement going. Let's turn up the volume, but let's not do it too much. And then if you turn up the music all the way, it's no longer enjoyable, and it drowns everything out. Maybe you're moving, but you're moving because you're freaking out because it's too loud. You're covering your ears. You're stamping on the ground. You're looking for the volume knob. You can't find it. You're trying to turn it down. Same thing with getting blackout, fucking belligerent drunk. It drowns everything out. It's no longer enhancing your life. It's no longer enhancing the situation. It's becoming a burden. It is rocking your brain and body, and is making things worse and destroying you in the short term and the long term. And that's what I got from this movie. Again, it's called Another Round. And I really do feel like drinking is music, and that one of the best parts of becoming an adult is learning how to drink. And there's actually an art to drinking, to being around people, to moderating your drinking based on certain situations, around certain groups of people, to learning to be safe but have a good time and not get to that point where you fucking blast the volume knob like you did when you were 18, 19, 20 years old, to let it enhance you, to let it run through you but not overflow you. And I want to end off this episode with a quote from a wise man. And I actually heard this quote from Mark Normand, who I just had on the Auxoro podcast. Quick plug, if you want to check it out. He's a New York comedian, one of the most hilarious guys on the planet. Mark Normand says, I love drinking, or this is a wise man said, but Mark Normand told me this. A wise man said, I love drinking so much that I don't do it every day. And fuck yeah, is that true? There's a lot of things, especially in the drug category, whether it's like booze or smoking weed, whatever it is. There's a lot of things that I love, so I don't do it every day. Addiction is the opposite of love. Addicts do things because they feel like they have to. It's not because they're enjoying it. There's some enjoyment out of it at the beginning. I'm not saying there's no good parts of drugs, but addiction, people don't do substances that are addicted to it because they love it. If they loved it, they wouldn't do it every day. They're doing it because they have the hooks synced into them by the substance that they can no longer remove. And it's a terrible sickness that I do not know the extent of, and hopefully I never will. And so I'm not an expert on that. I'm simply just saying that drinking is one of those things that I don't do it every day. I don't do it to the same level even when I am drinking because I love it, and I realize that drinking to a certain amount actually makes me hate it. And when people say I don't drink, there's a lot of spectrum in between total sobriety and alcoholism and full-blown alcoholism. And if you are able to explore that, I think it's a good thing to do, to find the balance of how something like alcohol affects you. And you can do this with drugs, you can do it with working out, you can do it with creativity, but learning to do things to a different extent and adjusting the volume knob is such a big part of life. It's such a big part of figuring out who you are as a human being. And that's also why I am in favor of most drugs, maybe not all drugs, but most drugs being legal. Because just because something like addiction exists and the risk of addiction exists, the overwhelming majority of people live in the middle of that spectrum. And I believe it's a human right to be able to explore that spectrum. And when things are legal, it seems like they will be safer because there's more regulation, there's more testing. You don't have to buy shit from a guy out of his trench coat pocket on the street corner. Be like buying whey protein out of the trunk of a car. Like, no, you want to feel like you're buying something legitimate. And that's a whole another conversation for another podcast. And thank you so much, guys, for listening to this. If you would like bonus episodes every month, go check out Auxoro Premium. That's auxoro.supercast.com. You get bonus episodes of this podcast, the AUX. You also get AMA series where you can ask me anything. You can suggest topics for this podcast. If you want me to talk about something like addiction, like school, Asians getting kicked out of schools for testing too high, LAPD locking up the wrong person for 2 weeks and being like, my bad. You can suggest that to me. You can send me shit, and people do, and thank you so much. So if you join Premium, you can do that. You also get access to the Unlicensed Therapy series where I give my unexpert opinion, unqualified opinion on dating, sex, and relationships. You can check all of that out at auxoro.supercast.com for $5 a month. $4 if you sign up for the year. That's auxoro.supercast.com. Follow us on Instagram at auxoro. YouTube is the same. Thank you guys for listening. I love you. I hope you have an amazing week, day, night, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Have a drink if it calls you. And I'll talk to you next time.